Hi, everybody. It's Jeff again, and we're doing the preface or the introduction of the book about working with Germans. I could say working with Germans or working with the Germans. It's pretty much the same thing. Working with the French, you got to say the French, but somehow there are some words I have already thought about why you have to say the in front of a few words, but here you don't have to. So that's that part of the why the title might be said differently in two different places, right? Um, so what I want to do is kind of explain that kind of in this preface or introduction, the kind of the reasons of the book or this book or tutorial series or what do you want to call this thing? It's a playlist on YouTube. Writing this just takes too long. Okay, so I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this in a video format. Um, this goes back a long time. I'll just say that you can look at my background. You can see that I did my master's and doctorate degrees in linguistics, but my master's degree was specifically in sociolinguistics. So I deal a lot of social factors in language learning and language adopting. But it's not just that; it's also historical. There are a lot of historical things. And during that period of time, 30 years ago, I actually taught cross-cultural classes. I taught a lot on cross-cultural, intercultural relations, uh, character traits, working interculturally. Have given seminars on this over the years in different places like pros.com and how to work on cross-culture projects and how to work in fast-paced stuff. Then there are plenty of references that I've already done. So this is not something new to me. And it's not something, it's not like I picked up a book last week and now I'm kind of writing a video series on someone else's stuff. No, this has got a lot of background of having written articles too. And I've done the article on working with the French. I'm making a video series about that now, and that was 15 years ago, the article. I actually did the one on American values. I actually did the initial one 30 years ago, and then I made a new series here called Working with Americans or Understanding and Working with Americans. So that's a brand new series and a video series here too. Just kind of giving this a way to help people be able to understand each other. So the German one, for the Germans, it's just kind of background real quickly is that I have worked in a German owned company, let's say that, or kind of a German overall. The headquarters is in Germany, with there are 100,000 employees, and there are lots of subsidiaries. It's a multinational, but a German head company. Okay, and the majority of the past 14 years, has been working on projects with many Germans in different divisions, not just one team. Okay, lots of different divisions, lots of different teams, lots of different projects on different topics. So this is kind of I've seen it many times. It's just multiple examples, and I would say, yeah, the majority of the past 14 years has been working primarily with Germans, where there's always a lot of negotiation, and some of those projects, we're just on a team working together on a project. It's okay. It's kind of an important one, but I've worked on pretty strategic ones too, like an entire the R&D alignment project, which was for all the acquisitions. So, and these are big acquisitions. These are not small little things. These were like an acquisition of like 5-10,000 people each. Okay, so that's a pretty big acquisition, and lots of factors involved. Okay, and negotiation with different countries. So and people in different countries actually under the acquisition. So it wasn't like they were all in a single place either, come from a single place. So it was kind of challenging. But what I've seen is I've seen a lot of, and I've continued over the years to look at different cross-cultural training courses over the past 15 years on what other companies have on training courses for intercultural, cross-cultural things, especially when they've got where a company has three or four kind of big kind of mergers and acquisitions, and they're like and so they have like there's no one that has actually a majority. Most people are kind of like equal. So that gets really interesting because they have to work on cross cultural stuff. And when you've got several companies are United Kingdom, France, Germany, that kind of stuff. Those are very common, and others might add a few more into the mix. But what happens is I've seen a lot of the cross cultural courses, and they all kind of point to the same things, the same kind of traits. So this is really digging into multiple courses from big companies that have to give training to be able to help employees do this. So I'm kind of bringing it. So I'm not going to. It's not just only my personal thoughts. It's not necessarily all books, but there are a lot of these training courses which are very valuable to understand certain traits. And the Germans are usually all in those. There's almost always. So the French and the Germans, the traits come across the same way every time. In whatever company you're taking the training course from, it's pretty much the same stuff. Said differently, but it's the same core stuff. So that's kind of good material that I will kind of dig into and mention, which will be valuable. I won't be able to cite the exact reference. I'm just trying to keep that. I'm trying to keep that under, kind of. I don't want to cite the thing because I'm not allowed to. Let's say it that way, okay? But I'll say that it's a multinational company and just that, and maybe the traits are coming from this or that, okay? I just don't want to divulge that information. But this is not just me or not just the company I work for. It's coming from other sources too. I'll side of things as I can, okay? But also a lot of personal experience of working in, as I said, some of these projects that are quite strategic and or of different types, but some strategic ones where really there can be domination. The headquarters decides we're going to do it this way, and the acquisition said no, we're not, and so or we're not. And actually, auditing. I've been an auditor, so I've had to bring this into audit sessions of development processes and production processes, and sometimes the acquisitions won it. Okay, so it's really interesting the things. The goal of this though is how did we get through it? How did we deal with the differences? How did we deal with many of the different factors? How do we deal with the conflict management aspects of it? It's really interesting, and I do recall. I would say that the majority of everything that I've done on these different projects, or I'll say most of the past 15 years, most of it has been done working with Germans or people in Germany, okay, and people that have been, I don't want to say formatted to a certain approach, and that's been interesting. Um, and what we'll see, and I did work with colleagues from Germany that lived in the United States for 10 years, and so there were lots of discussions, so many more discussions, not about the technical aspects of things, because we had to deal with the technical aspects. That's the easy part. The harder part is how do you deal with the positioning of things, the strategic positioning of how do we want to bring this project or this part of this project or this over and propose it in this way, but we want to propose it in a way that could be kind of approach A or B or C or D or E or F, okay? We had lots of those, and I do remember one of my colleagues that I don't want to say his name here, but he had grown up there in the same town where all the other colleagues had grown up, so they grew up playing soccer together in junior high school and the playing field and stuff, and then they ended up working for the same company later on, and so he knew these people not just as colleagues on projects, but as people, as friends, as having friends or sports club buddies and that kind of stuff. So that helped to actually really think through how we could position things. And I learned a lot from that. Not that I didn't understand it before. It just really enhanced the skills in how to try to position things in certain ways for this cultural group. And I'm going to call it this a cultural group I'm going to say that the cultural group of Germans is different than the cultural group of French. That's a different cultural group of the Brits or UK. UK is in still smaller multicultural groups too. It's not, and of course, not every. There are individual differences of people. You can always find it. The goal is kind of just to say, kind of more or less what this is. And significant amounts of time were discussed about the social aspects or the positioning aspects or the how that person and how they would react and probably potentially react and all that and hypothetical conjecture. And I would ask many times to my colleague that had lived in the United States for about 10 years at that time period of time. I just said, I would ask him if these specific traits that we're discussing and how we were positioning it, was it the result of a general German trait? Was it a general German cultural trait, this thing? Or was it a company specific, the headquarters company specific trait in the culture? Or was this like a local German state thing that in the state that Germany has little states, and so was it like a local thing compared to other ones, or was this something else? And so I want to share these things as we go through this book together, or crash course, or what do you want to call this thing, to kind of reveal a number of these traits and how they fit into some of the current trends of today, some of the things that we talk about today. Think kind of the big things that we're going to be kind of things I'll kind of get a highlight. We got here, I want to point to is we get a lot of things about artificial intelligence and machine learning. That's kind of the hype words, right, all the time, and how those are approached. Some other things that we can see are agile and scrum and lean and all that, which kind of has some interesting mixture with some German traits. Okay, let's say it that way. And how to deal with other types of approaches with regard to other factors that have been documented in a number of cross-cultural courses and cross-cultural blog or articles or magazine articles or whatever, and how to deal with those in real experience kind of situations. There will be times when I don't cite things, specific things, because I just don't feel I can, for certain reasons. But I'll try to be as specific as I can to give as much information as I can when I'm doing it. So let's go through this and find out, how we're doing it together. The whole thing is to help you understand Germans better, understand how they function better, help you negotiate and for you to be able to get through the struggles. And I hope that you can earn a little bit less gray hair than I have, okay? Because I got a bit of gray hair come from this. Maybe it's not only that. It might have been my children. I think my children contributed to the gray hair more than my work did. But so let's go through and go through some chapters of this book or crash course, and give you some points that you can think about, that you can consider as you on your path trying to understand how to work with Germans. So let's go to the next chapters.